don't know if you've noticed, but I'm dressed up as some sort of vampire because it's spooky Halloween night. The lighting is, of course, an effective tip, because apparently I'm a pro cameraman. So there you go. Today we're going to be doing some spooky things, and you're going to be really spooked. It's going to be fucking spooky. Anyway, we're going to be telling some spooky stories, and then, I don't know, that'll be maybe the part where I don't really know any. Anyway, roll the spooky intro! The boss. Once upon a time I was working and doing my job, and then my boss said we needed to talk in his office. I said okay, sure, yes, and then he said, okay Bill, you're fired unless you do something for me. And I said to him, okay, sure, yes, and again because I do not want to be fired, because then I will have no money. He then told me that he was Satan and also the devil, and he told me that he wanted to chew my soul, and if I am not efficient enough at my job. I said please no, but he did it anyway, and then I died, and now I'm dead, and I also had to bleed to death. This is a true story. I know, because I am you. Dun dun dun. Or if that wasn't hitting it close at home enough for most of you, there might some of you gamers out there enjoy this creepypasta called Game. Game. One time I bought a game. It was called Game. I played it and then there was static. Nothing but static. So I burned it because it was haunted. And then that night I saw static staring me. But that night I saw static staring menacingly at me through my window. Now I am the one with static. Shit son! Boo! And then a skeleton popped out. And for some of you who actually feel a little bit disappointed and want a legitimately creepy tale, here's one. It's quite long though. So if you want to listen to this, I would sit back, relax, and listen to your secret admirer. I'm writing to tell you how I really feel. You probably didn't notice, but for the longest time, I've always been there for you. I want you to know what I've done, and I hope by me opening up to you like this, you'll hopefully feel the same way, and we can be happy together forever. I remember when we were both 13, when you first transferred to my school. As soon as you walked in, I thought you were the most beautiful girl in the world. When your tranquil blue eyes crossed mine, even though it was for a brief moment, as you scanned the strange faces in the class, I knew I wanted to be with you forever again. But I was heartbroken straight away when you paired off with some other guy to show you around the school. You didn't really notice me much. You were always with your group of friends who were so very different from mine. Who am I kidding? I never really had any friends. The one thing that got me through all those years of loneliness was watching you, admiring everything you did, the way you gracefully went through your day without fault and simply left me in awe, day in and day out. As the years went by, you seemed pretty popular with both the guys and the girls. You were sought after by all the popular guys in the school, even by the older ones, but you shrugged them off. The girls loved you. The girls loved you how you looked after yourself. You always had your makeup and hair perfect, which made you admired, but hated. It's sad, but it's human nature to get jealous, and we are all guilty of this crime. What they ended up doing, however, was far out of line. I saw as they pushed you when the teachers weren't looking. They would shove you into nearby objects, which more often than not was the wall. When you stumbled and slammed into the walls, the teachers would simply turn and say, "Watch where you're going, dear." Declined. And then go about their business, blissfully unaware of what actually happened. Witnessing it happen every other day burnt me up inside, seeing you have to go for this torment for being better than them. It was painful to watch every time it happened. I hoped it would die down, but it only got worse. I saw as the bullies knocked your drink over when you least expected it, just because the most popular guy asked you out. I was there when they set your bag on fire in wordwork class because they thought you were condescending, and when you tried to help them with their work. And I caught glimpses of that one time when they actually threw you to the ground outside of the school gates and kicked you until you cried simply because you tried to tell the teacher what they were doing. After that incident, they followed you home. Usually they wouldn't do anything but yell abuse at you, but the worst part was that you would never know when they would snap and suddenly attack you when they were walking inches away from your back. It tore me apart to see the girl I loved so vulnerable. I wanted to fix it. What I knew is that there were 3 main bullies that were consistent. I knew more, but they seemed to do it out of peer pressure. The main culprit was that narcissistic whore, Bethany. Beth was simply jealous about everything about you. All the things I mentioned that made you great burned her up inside. She used to be the centre of attention, and oh my god did she love it. All the guys wanted to be with her, all the girls wanted to be her. The only difference between you and her is that she abused this attention for her own personal gain. She slept with most of the guys who showered her with gifts, or had their mummy and daddy pay for everything. She only hung out with girls whom she deemed lower than herself, so they would not be a threat to her god complex. But slowly, over the years of you being at the school, eventually she lost her reputation. By then, all the attention was on you. The second who had a disgruntled grudge against you was that asshole Chris. He asked you out in the school's annual dance in front of both his friends and yours, and you simply rejected him like many others. But what made his instance different than any others was he ran off crying because he was publicly embarrassed. In the school, that meant a lot. He denied liking you and lost all of his friends and reputation, so he took his frustrations out on you, on the one who he thought caused it all. You. The last person was Julie. She had it bad for you ever since the guy she liked had always been talking about how amazing you are, whilst not paying any attention to her. Even after she performed some, well, let's say, desperate deeds for him. During the last week of school, I knew they had something special planned for you. So I took it into my own hands to deal with it because I love you, and I didn't want your last few days at school to be ruined. The first person I convinced not to mess with you anymore was Chris. Now, he was much stronger than me, being into all the school sports, plus the steroids meant I wouldn't be able to take him down in a simple one-to-one fight. But in the end, that would be his downfall. I knew where he kept his steroids, and it wasn't hard to figure out. Since our school security reputation was so low, there was no hiding it. I got his locker combination by simply saying I forgot mine, and the teacher gave me a list of everyone's combination. Yeah, that's right, they have no sense of security in this school. I cracked open his locker with ease, leaving no trace of it ever being opened. I found the next shot he was going to use and squirted a little bit out, and then pulled the plunge back to where it was, leaving a considerably sized air bubble. I figured Chris was no doctor, nor does he have any clue how anything works together. He just injects himself and trains in the school gym. I bought a pass for the gym and pretended to train. He eventually came to the gym, laughing hysterically with his new friends. Enjoy it while you can, it's not going to last long, said a thought that crept into my head. He went into his locker, and not long after, he came out, dressed in his training outfit, with a determined look on his face. He was all ready to start. He was fine for a while, but eventually he slowed down and he had a puzzled look on his face, and his body slowly gave in, and eventually the cardiac arrest settled in and he was on the floor. People tried CPR, but there was no defibrillator around, since, well, it was a school filled with teenagers. Who would expect a heart attack in a place like this? I smiled and walked out before the paramedics arrived. It was already too late for him. Working up my list was Julie. She was always jealous of the way every guy liked you. I silently slipped into her window without her noticing. I knew her parents were out, so if she made a noise, no one would immediately come to her aid. I pounced on her while she was sleeping, pinning her down, and tied her hands to the bedpost, then her legs, and I pulled out several jars from my bag, each one almost black. Upon closer inspection, you would see small movements. They were full of grey creepy crawlies you would typically find at the bottom of anyone's garden. I took my time filling these up with every insect I could find. I wanted her to understand the pain you must have felt all that time when she was shouting abuse at you. hurting you and making you feel lower than you really are. I propped her mouth open with one of those plastic rings a dentist would use for a long procedure, and slowly I poured down each jar into her throat. Every time her screaming was muffled just a little bit more by the buzzing and scuttling sounds the bugs made as they adjusted to their new home. Tears streamed down her face as I repeated how all of this was for you. A few jars, and I could feel the bugs in her stomach, which was where I had been sitting the whole time. By this time she had pretty much passed out by the pain. When this happened, I would just wait and pour a bucket of water on her face and slap her until she responded. For punishment, I'd take the ring from my mouth and pour water down her throat, making her swallow all the insects, causing them to go into a frenzy of panic. Eventually, during the 5th jar, the pain of the insects burrowing into her internal organs was too much for poor Julie, and it caused her to pass away, but not peacefully, of course. I'd saved the worst until last. I had something special planned for Bethany. She was by far the worst to you. She made your life a living hell, and this was unacceptable. No one as perfect as you should have to have the displeasure of knowing these people. So I carefully set the pieces and waited. One day I got a head start. I skipped the last class, but no one noticed, not even the teacher. This shows how much I was noticed by the time in the school. I had memorized her route home and waited in the archway. I knew she walked past this area every time, and I waited and thought about what I was going to do, and how it was all for you. Although I didn't have to think about it much because I've already had it planned out. When I caught sight of her, I grabbed her and pulled her to the ground. She was kicking, screaming, but by this point of her journey, no one was ever around. The archway led to an abandoned, dull-lit church. I dragged her away from the path to the building so that no witness could intervene or find her body anytime soon. I did my routine of securing her arms and legs to a post so there wouldn't be much of a struggle. After that I gagged her, for I knew she would make a lot of noise for what I was about to do. I slowly pulled out my knife, making sure she caught sight of its shiny glimmer, and I placed the point of it on her lower leg and smiled. She reacted to the sharp point of the blade, and I slowly pushed down, making sure the wound was as clean as it slowly slipped into her flesh. It took a while, but eventually the knife's handle was touching her skin. I took my time pulling it out, making sure that it did not rupture with that easily recognized crimson liquid. But that would have meant her death, and that would have been too easy. As soon as the knife exited her body, I immediately wrapped up the split with a bandage, applying enough pressure to cut the bleeding down to a minimum. And then I placed the knife a little higher on her leg, doing the same thing, and I stared into her eyes as she helplessly watched me do this over and over, all over her body. After every stab, I would make a remark of how you didn't deserve what she did to you. Eventually, her whole body was nothing but red bandages, and she was barely conscious as I slipped the final blow into her heart. I can imagine you're screaming about now. In fact, I'll know you'll be, and I'll be close enough to hear it. And by you stopping, I know you've got this far in my letter, so I'll start making my way in. It's pretty easy to get in your house after the first few times. You probably thought it was your parents who left this note in your room in the first place. No, it was me. Don't be afraid by the noise downstairs. It's only me. Put down the phone. I know by now that you've got it in your hand, but I've cut the phone line. Don't even bother phoning your parents, because if you haven't done so already, I've already silenced them. You can stop your screaming now. I'm always right outside your door. Unlock it now, and soon it'll just be you and me. Together, forever. Lots of love. Your secret admirer. Written by Creepypasta. So there you go. I like him. He's good at that. He's good at that thing that he does. The creepy thing with the pastas. Anyway, boo. Mother truckers, like and subscribe. I'll be your best friend, and I hope you haven't pooped your pants by now. I know you already have. I'll be close enough to hear it. Anyway, bye!